Chef Patrick Trahan, thank you so much for coming to the studio today.
Thanks for having me, JP.
We met last week at Baton Rouge where you took Best in Show.
Yes, we did our blue crab gnocchi dish that is on our menu currently. We won gold in seafood, and then we ended up taking home Best in Show.
I'm really excited to get to know you today.
Yeah, me too. And I've only heard things about our moms, so I'm excited to hear your point of view and your perspective on it.
Awesome. Patrick, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, is that how we start a section like this?
I don't know,
I don't know either.
but let's roll with that.
Yeah. Patrick, tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right, so like I mentioned earlier, my first restaurant job was at a Western Sizzling Steakhouse, and I didn't know how to cook, but the intro station there is toasting bread. That's what you're doing all day. You're toasting bread and you're building the buns, the po' boy buns, the burger buns, but everything came with Texas toast. So that was that station, and that was pretty easy. But you could get in the weeds toasting bread. You think about that, like, how do you get in the weeds toasting bread? Well, as a 16-year-old, it's very easy to get in the weeds doing anything. So I worked there, and then I worked my way up to the fry station, and then their window station, and then grill. They had two flat tops, and that's where all the steaks and meat came from. It was a steakhouse, so with a salad buffet in the front, and you had soups and all that stuff. But that was my first intro to the industry, and this was in, 2002, 2003, somewhere in that area, and things were still being thrown in kitchens.
Yes.
Baked potatoes flying and exploding, and you getting hot shit all over you from a baked potato blowing up, or sweet potato was the worst. And that was normal. Those things were normal back then, and I'm, for one, glad that it's not like that anymore.
So am I.
But then after that, I was at Outback Steakhouse for about 2.5 years, and I was playing music at the time, and that was kind of my focus, was being in a band and making it big in music, and that, well, hardly ever works. But we had fun, and that was kind of I guess when I had that realization, music's great, music's fun, we're having a blast, we're partying and doing what, musicians do, and I was cooking as a means to make money. And when I realized there's no money in music for me, I wasn't that great. We weren't great, but we had fun doing it. So I asked myself, what do I want to do? Well, I like cooking. I don't really know if I want to go to culinary school, but let me go to community college and get these remedials and classes out of the way. I went to Nichols State when I first graduated from high school, and immediately, school's not for me. That was my, consensus there. And so I dropped out. And when I went back to community college, it was, I think, $900 for a full semester. I'm like, okay, great. I can afford to pay for this while I'm in school and working until I figure out what I really want to do. And then it dawned on me, shit, there's culinary school in my backyard in Thibodaux that offers a 4-year bachelor's degree. And at that time, I think John Falls Culinary Institute, Johnson & Wales, and CIA were the only schools in the country that offered a 4-year program, bachelor's degree for culinary or hospitality. And when I was at Nichols, they didn't really have concentrations like they do now. But that program has grown so much, and over the last 5-10 years, and they have a new facility that's been there, I want to say, for 4 or 5 years, maybe a little longer. But that was kind of my journey, and I didn't work in a fine dining restaurant. I worked in chains, but the one thing that working in chains taught me is consistency and these small little tips and tricks to where this is how everybody does it at this restaurant, across all of them. This is how we do the grill station. This is how we do saute. And that's what taught me to be a great broil cook or a steak cook, was the way that Outback Steakhouse taught me. You have your grill, you have your seasoning tray, and that seasoning tray mimics your grill. So your mediums go at the top, Your wells and mid-wells go in the middle. Your rare and medium rares go at the bottom. So that translated to the grill. Now, when you get into starting to think on your own, well, I can put 2 mid-rares at the top with a steak weight on it, and you start to be able to manipulate how it works, but it's all based off of that one principle, right? And that's what taught me how to be a great steak cook, and that's what I teach when I'm teaching people on a broiler station, is that exact same thing, because it works, and it works really well. So getting into culinary school, I was a little bit older than everybody else, and I had an upper leg because I had been cooking for, 4 years prior in these restaurants. And for me, it was refinement. That's what I was going to culinary school for, to learn refined cooking, to learn knife cuts, to learn these classic sauces, and could I have learned that going work in a restaurant? Absolutely. I don't think you need to go to culinary school to become a great chef, but for me, I already knew how to cook, and I needed refinement, or that soigné, so to speak, and that's what I got from school. And everybody that goes to culinary school, really any school for that matter, has the opportunity to learn whatever it is. It's what you put in is what you're going to get out. And I was all in. I wanted to do all the events that they were doing on campus, off campus. I wanted to be a part of everything. I wanted to learn as much as I could about the industry and about hospitality. I don't even think I knew what hospitality was at that time, though. I just knew I wanted to be this badass cook and learn as much as I could. So through Nichols, I got sent to Westchester Country Club in Rye, New York, where I learned a lot from Chef Joseph Albertelli. He's now a certified master chef, and he's part of the country clubs and resorts and stuff like that. That's where his pedigree is, and I'll never forget working for that man. It was brutal, 6 days a week, 10, 12-hour days as an extern, getting paid next to nothing because I was an extern. I signed a contract saying this is what you'll be getting paid. And the second day I was in that fine dining kitchen, the broil cook was drunk, and he got kicked off the station. Well, the chef says, I want you to watch me for 5 minutes and then do what I'm doing. Well, after about 30 seconds of me standing there watching, he says, what the fuck are you doing? Get in here. I'm like, okay, I'm scared shitless, right? I'm like, I don't want to fuck this up. I don't want to mess this up, but I know how to cook steaks. So once I got in there and I put my head down and focused, the shift was over, and him and the sous chef were looking at each other like, well, what about this guy, But 2 days before that, I'm cutting potatoes, and chef says, that's the most expensive potato salad I've ever seen. I'm thinking to myself, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah, because it's taking me a long time to cut these potatoes, and he had all these jokes and things that would go over your head because I'm just a dumb kid in culinary school. Yeah. And, I didn't know any of that stuff, but he really taught me and took me under his wing. And I started doing pre-shifts with them, going over our specials for the day, going over what oysters we had. He really got me involved in being a sous chef. And that wasn't the goal at all. The goal was to go there and I don't even know, just learn how to cook in a fine dining restaurant, because I had very little experience with that. Well, I got to learn how to do ordering. Like I said, doing the pre-shifts, coming up with specials, working that Sunday we did a buffet. Well, I was the cook in the back doing hotline preparation. I learned every facet of it, and that was attributed to him. And that was kind of the turning point for me. That's whenever I realized this is what I want to do. I'm really good at it, but more importantly, I love this shit.
I was about to say, it sounds like an amazing experience, and that's where your love really started coming from.
Yeah. And
I don't know if it was from toasting bread at Western Sizzling, but
I think it's the environment, it's controlled chaos is what it is.
Yes, it is.
And just to be a part of that, to be a part of service from beginning to end, to be able to prep a station, to running that station, to running a kitchen, those were the things. And it's running a station so easy. I look at it as I've got to worry about these 6 dishes, prepping for that. Sometimes you just want to go back and be a line cook, This is so much easier. There's no stress involved because I have to worry about these 5 things. I don't have to worry about what these 6 people are doing with their 5 to 6 things, and what the front of the house is doing, what the dishwashers are doing. You know, there's so much that goes into everyday planning and what we do that people don't see or understand what it takes to run a restaurant. So just to go back or think back on memories of being a line cook it's like, man, those were the
good
days.
old days.
Those
huh?
were the days.
So it's almost like you had less responsibility,
Right.
You know.
And after New York, I got back, and I had another year of school. So there was an externship that they sent students to France, to Lyon, part of a immersion program to learn French cuisine.
You got to go to France?
Institut Paul Bocuse, yes.
Dude, it's awesome.
Through Nichols, right? So I talked to people about culinary school and how it didn't really do anything for them. Well, like I said, it's, you get out what you put in. And I was all in. And that's how I got these opportunities. I applied myself not only in classes, but outside of class. And being part of that program allowed me to go to France. I got selected, one of three people to go and learn French cuisine. And that opened so many doors for me in my perspective and how I viewed things. Because in France, everything's fresh. Everyone shops every day. They go to the market, they get a loaf of bread, they grab what they're cooking for that night. You don't go to the supermarket, you don't buy groceries for 2 months or, 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever.
You don't make a big Costco trip.
Right. Well, our bread here in America lasts 2 months. Bread there lasts 3 days, if that. And so that's what was the coolest thing for me, was seeing that culture. It was a huge culture shock, but in a good way. And that kind of drives me to want to use local fresh ingredients. And, like we use St. Bruno's bread, which has no preservatives. It's made, we get deliveries 3 times a week. And that's huge for me, making these local connections and partnerships with these companies that supply fresh local products. And their bread's awesome. I don't know if you've had it, but
I have. I'm supposed to be getting in contact with someone there to see if I can do a collab with them for like a LSU tailgating package or something.
Awesome. But yeah, Steven's great. And just the few years I've worked with him, just to see his business grow exponentially, and he's doing great things, man. And we need people like that in our community.
I'm going to need to get his number from you before you go. Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, France, the first 2 weeks, I'm calling home. I want to go home. I hate this. This
Homesick.
sucks. I was so homesick. I'd never been out of the country before. I'd never really, I went to college, but I lived at home. It was right there in my backyard. So I'd never experienced dorm life, and it sucked. No air conditioning. And when we got there in May, it wasn't bad. The weather was nice, but it gets hot in Lyon in the summer, and you don't have AC. So I ended up buying 2 fans, and I had that in my room, but those first 2 weeks were miserable. So the first week of class was great. They spoke in English, but that second week, they flipped the script and everybody's speaking French. I'm like, what is going on?
Oh my
Get me out of here.
Yeah.
Why? 1 week. 1 week's not enough, and I'm trying to understand. And so I had to become very quick at visually learning or trying to figure out what's going on, what they're trying to tell me by looking at this demonstration and then doing it and hopefully not fucking it up. And I did. I messed some things up, This chef, L'Hospitalier, 5'2", all of nothing, right? And I'm 6'4", and I'm scared shitless of this man. We're breaking down whole chickens, and these chickens are breast chickens. They're from the region of Brest, and it's the only chicken that's AOC certified. That's how good this chicken is, right?
Wow.
It's like a bottle of wine. It has a classification, and we're breaking down these chickens. They have the heads on them. They have the feet still on them, and we're getting into cutting the toes off, right? So he cuts off the middle toe, and I'm like, okay, cool, we're cutting all the toes. So I cut all the toes off, and he gets pissed at me. He starts screaming at me in French. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
But I know you're mad at me.
Yeah, you're mad. So, and then he says, you are supposed to be the best in your school, no? I'm like, oui, chef. He's like, then why don't you listen? I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. I don't know how to listen. So it was very quick. I had to find a tutor to teach me French, and that was another thing. You know, I started to get all in on that. And
you had to learn the language and cooking at the same
right.
time.
After 3 weeks, I started to get the hang of it, and I could understand and not speak so much, but at least understand what was going on. And hearing these words over and over in the kitchen, you get, you know, you're totally immersed in it, and it makes it's a fight or flight mechanism. I have to learn this, or I can go home, you know, and that wasn't an option. So that's whenever it became fun. And then being able to go explore France at night in Lyon and go eat at these small little brasseries, hole in the walls, but everything was prefix menu in these small little brasseries. You go in, you pick one of 3 appetizers, a salad, an entree, and you're drinking wine out of the tap that costs €2 for a huge bottle. It was the best thing ever. And it was good wine. Their table wine's great wine. You know, there's no preservatives, so you don't really get a hangover the next day.
Wow.
No nitrites. But just being part of that program and meeting all these students from across the world. I want to say there was 21 different countries involved in that program when I was there.
At the same time, in the same kitchen, basically.
Well, you had groups. So you basically worked with the same group throughout the whole time, and you'd get paired with other groups. But there were 20-something countries, 2 to 3 students from each school. So not only did we learn French cooking and French, culture, but you're learning Finland, Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, Japan. There was a guy from Japan there. There's people from all over. And that was the coolest part.
Learning from one another. Forming
these relationships with people over such a short period of time, a 5-month period, that some of these people I still talk to today. One of my best friends there he's from Greece, and the other guy was from Finland. And, there's this girl from Ecuador that taught me French. She was my teacher.
Tutor.
Yep. And she lived in America too. So she spoke very fluent English, very fluent Spanish, and very fluent French. So it was a lot easier for me to learn from somebody that spoke English, and American English too. That makes a difference.
It does.
So after France, I got back to Thibodeau, and my dad said, "All right, you're done with college. Time to move out." I'm like, "Okay, great. New Orleans, that's where I want to go." So I did a few stages. I staged at La Petite Grocery. I staged at Bayona, Susan Spicer Restaurant, and I staged at Mofo. And this was when Mofo was, I want to say maybe no more than a month it had been open. And it was that organized chaos and that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing how to cook Asian food. I had no idea. And I was out of place. And that's why I chose it. I could have went and worked at La Petite Grocery. I could have went and worked at Bayona. I got job offers from all 3 of the places, but I wanted to be uncomfortable and I wanted to learn Asian food.
I love that about you.
And I fell in love with it, But that, again, the first 2 weeks, it's like getting acclimated with anything. It's miserable. I've got to wake up and go do it again and do it again. And once you start to get a hang of it, and I started to feel like I had a little ebb and flow going on, and it just became a no-brainer. This is, I want to work for Mike. And Blake and Trey were the sous chefs there. And they taught me a lot too, but that's where I started to get into actual refinement and learning, honing my craft, becoming this great line cook and being the guy that is a tournant and working every station on their days off. And, a lot of people, I'm off tomorrow. I'm not prepping my station. I'm going to prep just what I need for today. Well, I'd show up the next day and I'd stock the entire station. So when they got back, everything was there. It was perfect. It was what, and that's what Mike preached. He said, look, don't worry about what they're doing. Worry about what you're doing and make sure that you're doing the best that you can do. And that's what we strive for. That's how we get better. That's how people notice that. That's how you get moved up. Mm-hmm. That's how we become sous chefs and ultimately executive chefs. So after Mofo, I moved back home and I worked at Milano, a little Italian restaurant that a friend of mine was working at. He was the executive chef, and I just wanted to be a line cook. I need to take a break. no responsibility. Let me just go and cook food. Well, very quickly, the owner noticed what I was doing, and he's like, I want you to be a sous chef, and I want you to eventually be the exec. And I said, well, I don't want that right now. And after 3 weeks, I think I became the executive chef. It kind of happened.
It just kind of fell in your lap.
So I was at Milano for about a year, and I moved to Baton Rouge. You know, I wanted to get out of Thibodeau and Homa and, you know, see what Baton Rouge had to offer. But when I moved to Baton Rouge, I started serving tables. I needed another break from the kitchen. You know, that's sometimes we go through those phases where we just need a break. So I served tables at a couple of different places, but when I first moved here, I want to say it was the second week I was living here, I met Pam, my wife, and we met on Bumble. You know, it was the first time I'd ever been on a dating app, hers too. And within 2 days we met, and I never looked back. And it was amazing, you know, that I wasn't looking for this. She wasn't looking for this, but it just kind of happened. You know, it was a very natural relationship.
That's when the best things happens, when you're not looking for it.
Yeah. So she helped me find a job at Texas de Brazil. I was a gaucho for like a month there. And then I served tables at Bistro Byron's and at Red Stick Social. And then I was contacted by Tian when we went to culinary school together. And he was working at Kalurah Street Grill. He was the executive chef and had plans to go work at Disney. So I got in contact with Brad Watts. And we sat down, talked a little bit about the job. And he asked me, he said, are you even interested in this? And I said, yeah, I am. You know, I'm very wary about getting back in the kitchen. So let me go see the kitchen. Let me go stage. Let me go work with Tian for a couple of shifts. And I did that. And then we revisited and sat down, and I ended up taking the job, and that was the best decision I could have made. You know, me and Brad's relationship has grown throughout the last 6 years, and he's one of my best friends. And it's weird to say that about a boss, you know, but we clicked. We have the same mentality, the same mind frame on what hospitality is, and what the food that he wanted me to do was not what Baton Rouge was doing. Mm-hmm. And that really, really appealed to me. You know, I didn't want to do Cajun Creole food, or, you know, I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. I didn't want to fall into that same category, and he made that possible. And, you know, his thing was no gumbo, no bread pudding. We're not doing that. So there was a dish I came up with that was a katsuodashi gumbo ramen. And I basically made gumbo, but from a katsuodashi broth. And we served it with ramen noodles instead of rice, with crab meat, you know, a poached egg, a charred eggplant, and bok choy. And we put some katsuobushi on top, to where when it hits the table, you know, it's moving. And that was a huge thing for us. You know, it was just that interaction that the tables have. And this is a gumbo ramen, you know, who does that? So we got to do cool things like that. And then COVID happened. You know, March comes around. I just released the spring menu. We have so much momentum. I'm feeling great. Brad's feeling great. And then boom, 3 weeks after we run this new menu, we have to shut down.
COVID. Yeah.
So we took a week off to figure out, what are we going to do? You know, what's the move here? We got together with Chef Mark from Sicilia, and we all sat down and we said, we're going to do to-go food. Which what we did was different than what they did. We were doing plate lunches every day. So we would write a menu for the next week, and we would do burgers. We would do chicken piccata. We would do jambalaya, red beans and rice, you know, just comfort food that people could come and pick up. And we would feed, different fire departments would come and get food from us, you know, hospitals. We would, working with whoever we could, not just to help us, but to help everybody else. You know, that was shitty times.
It was.
For everybody. And being these, you know, so-called necessary workers, or I forget the term.
Essential
workers,
what they called it?
Essential workers, right? That was just, it was crazy. And we did to-go food for about 2-3 months. And this was before the PPP loans and everything were even a thing. And then when we started, getting into the PPP loans, it was like, okay, we've got what we need to stay afloat. We're in here, busting our ass, killing ourselves, and it's really not getting anywhere. So we decided to shut down and close. And then this 25% rule came back, and we were like, 25%, great. We're going to open and lose money because we can't sit the whole restaurant. Why would we even entertain that? And why are these rules in place like this? So then you got to 50%, then 75%. Me and Brad would meet every week on a Monday, and we'd say, what are we doing? What's the plan? When do we decide to reopen? And it got to a point where it's in September now. We've been closed for 2-3 months, and we had to open. If we didn't open now, it was going to be an issue because everyone else around us was opening, and these places were, getting business. And this was a make or break for us. So we opened. And did we follow those guidelines? No, but it's impossible to follow those guidelines and still operate as a restaurant and be open. It was impossible. So we rolled the dice, and we opened, and we didn't get in trouble. Nobody came around and said, oh, your tables aren't 6 feet apart, whatever. We just wanted to be back serving food and, getting back into it. And it was never the same after that. I think the industry is not the same.
It's still
for
not
anybody.
the same. Yeah.
And that was very disheartening for me. It just was, it was difficult for both of us, and we could see it in each other. We could see it in the restaurant, even in the guests. It was just a different experience for everybody. I didn't want to go eat out because I didn't want to have to wear a mask to walk into this place. I didn't want to sit 6 feet apart, and just all of it was it was horrible. So once we got back ramped up, we rolled out a new menu. We had an entirely new team because everybody kind of
They left, yeah.
went their own way. And then we get to a year and a half after us opening. Brad sits us down and says, we got to close the doors. So that was heartbreaking.
Sure.
I loved that restaurant. And Brad did say, he said, all of you don't realize how good you have it, but you will whenever you go to these, wherever you go next. And we had it made. I mean, it was so laid back, but we got to do what we wanted with the food. There were no boundaries, and that was, I still think about that restaurant. I still think about the food. I still think about the people that came to eat there and the people that worked with us. It was just, we were a family. And it's hard to find that. It's hard to create that culture where everybody's on the same page. Everybody's firing on all cylinders. Everybody understands the assignment and what the goal is, So after that, I found a job at the Watermark as the executive chef. And I did that for a year and realized hotel life, just not for me.
It's very different.
It is. And not to say that it's not
in a bad
so much
way.
corporate, but it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 365 days a year. There's days off, but there's no days off essentially. Even on a day off, you're going to get a phone call, something's going to happen. And it was tough to work in that environment, just that wasn't for me. But I did put together a great menu. And while I was there, it was great. I loved that we did Cajun steakhouse, and I got to take some recipes from my mom, what she made for us as children, and kind of spruce them and elevate them into, these dishes. And that was really cool to say, hey, I'm using my mom's dirty rice recipe for this dish. So that was awesome. It was definitely a learning curve for me and a good experience. But after the hotel, I took about a month and a half off. We went to Dominican Republic for the first time. That's where my wife is from, and that's where I proposed, and I'd been wanting to propose for probably a year and a half, 2 years, but I wanted to do it in DR. I wanted it to be special. I wanted it to be
unforgettable.
Yes, and it was. We were in Christopher Columbus's mansion. house there, and that's where I proposed. It was very cheesy, you know, but it was our cheesy, and it was, you know, it was awesome.
Cheesy is fun, man.
Yeah. So I meet up with Megan Klock, the director of operations for Ruffino's, and we sat down and, you know, talked a little bit about what I was looking for and what she was looking for. And immediately we clicked. You know, she said she worked at Outback. I was like, oh, no shit. Me too. Well, when did you work there? And I told her, I'm like, yeah, I worked with Stephen Boudreau in Homa. And she's like, oh, I know Stephen. I worked with Stephen too. And I said, yeah, Bruce was our regional director, I think. She's like, well, Bruce is my best friend. I'm like, no shit. So we started not even talking about Ruffino's, not even talking about work, just having conversation about our past and our history in the industry. And we clicked, you know, and I knew this is it. This is where I need to be working. So took over at Ruffino's about a year and a half ago. And we've been doing some great things, you know, menu changes. We're getting involved with, like, we just had the Eat the Competition dinner that we do every year, and that all those proceeds go towards the Louisiana Hospitality
Foundation.
Well, it's the hospitality, tongue twisted here, the program at LSU. So they're going to be naming it the Ruff and Rodrigue Foundation. So
very cool.
All the proceeds that we get from that dinner are donated to this program, you know, and that's really cool. And we actually had an extern last spring work with us, and she's back working with us now as an employee, you know, so that's really awesome to see her dedication and her come and work for us and doing this as an externship. And I know things can get really crazy in kitchens, and I've seen people that I've hired, they show up for one day and they never come back. No call, no nothing, just, oh, not for me.
Not for you,
right?
Yeah.
But Emma's awesome. You know, Stephen Hightower actually set this up for her through me and Megan, and we hope to get more externs from this program, you know, and the program's growing exponentially. But there's a vetting process for it too, where they're being very selective of the students there that they're allowing in this program. And it's really cool to see, because they've got to want it. You know, it's like what we talked about. Do you give a shit or do you not give a shit? And it makes so much difference when people care. So
that's the only thing I look for is, do you care?
Yeah. I can teach you anything, but I can't teach you how to care.
Nope.
I can't teach you that. You know, that's kind of my rundown of history in this industry. And, you know, I'm happy to be with Ruffino's. It's just, I know the vision that Megan has and that Allison has for the restaurant, and it aligns with what I want to do and the food that I want to do. You know, I'm getting to be creative again, and be excited about it. You know, it's a job. It's always a job, but it's a lot easier when you like what you're doing.
Are you happy doing this job?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's more important than anything else. It doesn't matter how much you're getting paid if you're miserable.
Yeah.
You know,
no amount of money can pull you out of misery.
Yeah. So you've done so much, man. The first time I heard your name was at K Street. I used to remember, to me, I'd never seen a restaurant in Baton Rouge do something like that before. You know, like, it's so creative. The menu changed so often, and it was always good. I don't think I had anything that was not good. A lot of things that my wife had to make me try,
right?
Because, you know, I got to step out of my comfort zone. I'm very, you know, plain when it comes to things, but she would always just order crazy things, it seemed like, right? And then every time I was like, wow, this is so good. And then after that, my wife and I, we do like staycations at the Watermark. So the Gregory is the name of the place, right?
Right.
So we would eat at the Gregory, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, and I was like, and then your name popped up again. I was like, wow. So now I'm like, all right, cool. Like, Patrick Trahan, you know what I mean? Like, and then finding out that you went to Ruffino's, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. So I met Megan through the LRA, and she is an amazing person. Like, she's so awesome. I don't know what it is about her, and like how it's the vibe and the energy she puts out. I heard someone call her Mama Bear one day, and she's just so good at what she does, and the amount of care that she has. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody with that much care. Throughout the whole thing, like, you start to see, like, it's the food at Ruffino's. I had lunch there last week. That's when I ran into you, and you were super nervous. It was the day before. It was the day of
The
Fête
day of,
Rouge. Yeah. So I remember seeing you and we were just talking. And you were so nervous about it, and then I saw you later on that evening, and that's when you took home best dish, huh? Was it best in show? Yeah, that was
Yeah,
awesome.
I won gold in the seafood category, and then best overall dish.
So watching you walk across that stage was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Like the smile on your face was. I remember going, "That's my dude," you know.
Yeah, man, it doesn't get easier every year. You know, I've won my category the last 4 years in a row, right? I've competed 4 years and I've won gold in my category, but it's still nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
There's no level of confidence will get rid of those nerves.
It won't.
But that's what, for me, I think that's what keeps me doing so well is that nervous energy. It keeps me focused. It keeps me on my toes, and nervous energy for me makes me think of all facets of everything. You know, I overthink things, and it just leads to me wanting to perfect it. But I go over it so many times in my head all the time. Just, this has to be perfect. What about this? What about this? What about this? You know, just constantly thinking, and that nervous energy makes me hyper focused. And I think that's why I do so well. You know, is that fault, what some would consider a fault, is actually
It's a superpower.
positive for
Yeah.
me. Right.
I love that. I ate your dish twice. It was that good. Tell me a little bit about the dish.
Yeah. So the dish came about when it was my first cooking class, and it was for LSU's volleyball team.
You did a cooking class for the team?
Yes, it was a 3-course. They wanted to do something nice for the players and the staff. So we did this cooking class. It was supposed to be, I don't know, 40 something people. We ended up being 71 people. I think I had been at Ruffino's for maybe 3 months. And this was the dish I served for an appetizer, you know, and it's evolved a little bit, but that's where the basis for the dish came. And I started tweaking it, but it's potato gnocchi. The dish is called blue crab gnocchi. So we use Louisiana jumbo lump crab meat, potato gnocchi. That's sitting in a pancetta beurre blanc. So we cook down a bunch of pancetta, aromatic shallots, and garlic, and then a bunch of white wine. Cook that down. I add a little bit of cream. Don't tell people that, but that's how you stabilize a beurre blanc in a restaurant setting. And then mount it with a crap load of butter, a little bit of xanthan gum to stabilize it. And that served blistered cherry tomatoes, wilted spinach, jumbo lump crab meat on top, and we do a house-made chili oil with Korean chili flake and crushed red pepper, some star anise, clove, bay leaf, just for a little bit of aromatic there. And that's the dish.
I feel like I'm drooling right now. I can still taste it. It was that
it's
good.
a very, very simplistic dish. You know, there's not a lot of components and not a lot to it, but it has a lot of depth of flavor. And that's the goal for me. You know, I want things to be balanced. Everything kind of has to hit on all tones for that to happen. And that's what I think about when I'm creating a dish is balance. You know, I start with a protein, or I start with a starch, or whatever I want the star to be, and then build around that. Keeping in mind seasonal ingredients, things that we can actually source. And that's how I build dishes, you know. And we run specials every week. We do 5 to 7 to 8 specials a week, depending on what we have going on at the restaurant. And that's kind of the opportunity and where some specials come from. You know, I could be in the super weeds and do something that's so simple for a special, yet it becomes this powerful dish. And it's like, holy crap, this needs to go on the menu, you know, and those are those happy accidents. So that's the dish. And then the dish from last year, the fig and hoisin glazed pork belly, that's also on our menu too.
God.
So
I was about to say that's on the menu now.
yes. And the gnocchi is also on the menu too. We started that in April whenever we did our spring and summer menu change, and we'll be doing fall and winter in October, and then back in April. So every 6 months, we're going to be seasonally changing our menu. Ruffino's has never done that before. And that's for both locations here in Baton Rouge and in Lafayette. But I think it needs it. You know, I think sometimes menus become stale, and I know guests that have been going to eat at the restaurant for 15 years, 20 years. They're going to get upset when certain things come off the menu.
Yes.
And it's our job to direct them towards something similar or something that we know they're not going to be disappointed with, right? And eventually I will gain the trust of everyone, and it'll be a lot easier for us to change menus and kind of get a little more creative and a little more weird, you know? That's another part of balance that nobody talks about is I can change a menu tomorrow, but is it going to be in line with what the owner wants? And is it going to be in line with what our guests are willing to accept? I could go and make some crazy things tomorrow, but no one's going to come to eat it. So it's gradual, you know, gradually getting them outside of their palate's comfort zone and getting them to trust me a little bit more with these specials. And that's kind of where I can showcase some things. And the cooking class is kind of the same way. You know, with the cooking class, you buy a ticket and you're at the mercy of what I want to prepare, you know? So I can do some things
sounds like
outside
a lot
the
of
box.
fun.
It is. We have so much fun with these cooking classes, and essentially it's a 5-course wine dinner that we pick a theme for the cooking class, and then we try to pair wines and using certain reps depending on what we're doing. So we have our French cooking class coming up in September.
Do you know the date on that one?
It's the 16th.
The 16th of September?
Yeah, in Baton Rouge. And then we do the 15th in Lafayette. So we do Monday in Lafayette, Tuesday in Baton Rouge. It's the same wines, same cooking class, same menu. But, you know, these things are so much fun. And this is what I look forward to. You know, it gets me outside of the day-to-day.
It's different.
It is. And it's like Fête Rouge. It's like these small things that you look forward to kind of get out of that day-to-day job, you know.
Spice it up a little bit.
Yes.
You know.
So we do, I want to say 8 cooking classes a year. And I have all the themes picked out by December. We post all of that on social media so that people can see, hey, this is what we got coming up next year for cooking classes.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to go to one for sure.
For sure. It's definitely a good time.
Just to kind of, I've never gotten to work with you before.
Yeah.
So that's probably the closest I'll get probably. I did get to see you work at ProStart though when French Settlement did the Ruffino's takeover. That was really cool to see just all those kids and how nervous they were and all the mistakes that they were making. And like it was just a lot of fun. But watching you keep your composure and watching you like help them along, I was like, this dude's got his stuff together.
Yeah, the biggest thing was that with them was sense of urgency. You know, it's like, okay, guys, it's 30 minutes before service, and a lot of these things aren't done yet. And, you know, trying to project that in a way that doesn't come off as scary or, intimidating. That was hard to do. It's because these are high school students, you know, so just giving them a little bit of a pep talk saying, hey guys, this is what we need to do. We got to get moving. We got 30 minutes left, you know, and saying that to them an hour out, 45 minutes out, 30 minutes out, gets them starting to think about an internal clock of where I need to be and what I need to be doing at this time. That's huge too, is self-awareness, but also knowing what time it is and where you're at, because so many people get lost in that, you know. Oh, I've got 2 hours. Well, 2 hours becomes 30 minutes, becomes service very quick.
2 hours isn't as long as you think it is when you're in the kitchen.
That's right.
You know, everything takes so long to cook and prepare, and you're like, I have 2 hours. Like, you don't really have 2 hours.
No.
Like,
And our goal, you know, as chefs and as line cooks, is to, when we're preparing dishes, right, when people don't really know what goes into it. Well, it's getting as far as you can to completion without compromising quality.
Yeah.
That's what we do. That's the goal. How far can we take this dish without compromising quality to where it's only going to take me 5 minutes to pick this up,
finish it off.
Everything's going to be as fresh as it would be if I made it from scratch. You know, that's what we have to look at. And so much planning goes into doing that. 35 to 40 item menu work, you know, and when you think about
to get it out in like 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, appetizers out in 5 to 7 minutes, entrees out in 15 minutes. And when you're doing 400 and 500 covers on a Friday night,
You're moving.
it's tough.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's another thing with Ruffino's that I've learned is I've never worked in a kitchen that does so much volume, not only in the restaurant, but catering and pan orders. You know, we do a lot of pan orders for people. We do seated dinners. Every week we have parties, you know, and it's amazing to see how much food we can actually put out of the kitchen and in such short amount of time. You know, it's impressive.
It really is amazing. Just even the food that those kids pumped out that day.
Yeah.
I was like, that was a lot.
It was. And that was all them. They created that menu. They planned everything. And it was really cool to see high school kids being able to put out that caliber of food. You know, it's very impressive.
You look like you enjoyed it a lot. Like
I
you were having a lot of fun that day.
I did.
So.
And I think my team did too. You know, my sous chefs. It's not every day we get to work with students, and not every day we get to work with people that have that passion like those kids do. And seeing that, it gives me hope for the future of the industry. You know, it's really amazing to see that there's kids out there that this is what they want to do. Thinking back, why? It's crazy. You know, why did we choose this path? Why did we get into this business that's difficult and it's so demanding mentally, physically, emotionally, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Certain people are just drawn to it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. I think we are insane people.
We are.
To be doing this.
I say it all the time.
Enjoying it.
I was like, we can complain about all the things that happen and all the hard things that come along with the restaurant business, but at the end of the day, we love what we do. You know, I'm the happiest doing restaurants.
Yeah.
Because I think it boils down to me making other people happy and just watching the smile on their faces. And you're talking about instant gratification earlier. I used to, at the beginning, I would kind of peek around the corner and like, you can tell everything you need from that very first bite. You don't have to say anything. It's your face. It's how you move. And you're like, oh yeah, that was good. I was like, got that one, you know? Or if, you know, it's a less than favorable, you know, reaction, you're like, what can I do better?
Yeah.
Right. You know, like, what didn't you like? Like next time, like, how can I make this better?
Exactly.
And that's the draw of, I guess, problem solving or, you know, just getting a little bit better every day.
Yeah. Every day's not like any other day either.
No, they're not.
You know, that's what I like about it too, is it's not the same thing every day. You know, yes, we're cooking the same food every day, but scenarios are never the same.
People aren't the same. Yeah.
So that's what's really unique and interesting about it.
It keeps it it's very interesting. It's not boring.
Correct.
You know, like, yes, you're cooking the same food all day long, but it's definitely not boring.
Nope.
Like there's something different every day. We always, we have a saying, it was like, it's never gonna be perfect every day. So there's something bad that's gonna happen. You know, a fryer's gonna go out, AC might go out, something is gonna happen. And your job is to fix it and to make sure the guests aren't impacted in too much of a negative manner.
That's right.
You know, sometimes you can't help it, you know, but a lot of the times you can if you try hard enough, you know? So we were talking about Fête Rouge earlier, and do you know what you're going to make before every event? Like how long do you prepare for each event?
Well, it depends. You know, sometimes I'll have an idea months in advance, months out, but typically 3 or 4 weeks before kind of thing for me. I do a lot better under pressure, and whether that's forced pressure on myself or procrastination, whatever it may be, it's when my brain is, you know, really
sharpest.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm in this industry.
Yeah.
You know, that pressure, it only helps. It only helps me make these decisions and be creative with these dishes. So I think for this one, I didn't know what I was going to do until maybe 2 months before. And I didn't want to do anything that was on the menu, but then I started thinking I would be stupid to not do this dish. It's the best thing that we're serving out of that kitchen right now, you know, and it speaks for itself. So that kind of was the deciding factor for me, was I could do something not on the menu or do something different, which is what I did last year. It was a no-brainer. And cooking classes are kind of the same way. We usually will taste wines a month and a half out, and then I'll do a menu. I'll pair food to the wine. It's a lot easier for me to pair the food to the wine than say, hey, let's pick a menu and then pair the wines to it, because we're not tasting the food. You know, I'm not going to create 5 dishes for us to taste and then pair that with the wine. So a lot easier to taste wine and then say, okay, this would be really good with this wine. And I'll typically have those menus. So this one's in September 16th. I just completed the menu yesterday.
Okay.
So I'll have that uploaded to our marketing team today, and they'll hopefully upload it the next couple of days.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
So you have a new fall menu coming out, right?
Yes.
What's on that thing? Can you tell me?
I don't know yet. We have an idea of what's gonna go on there, but it's not finalized. So I don't want to tell you one thing and then it not be on there. But for sure, we are going to be changing from our chicken and veal piccata. We're going to change to marsala to kind of fit. You know, it's going to be fall and winter, a little bit of a heavier dish, and then in the spring we'll go back to the piccatas. I'll probably be changing up the burrata dish that we have. Crawfish cakes are going to come off because it's not crawfish season, you know, things like that. So we have a good idea of what we want to do. It's just getting everything on paper and coming up with the recipes so that way I can translate everything over to Lafayette, go over there and do a soft opening of the menu. So we basically will do a soft run with it. We'll probably run the new items for specials a few weeks out so everybody kind of has an idea. The line cooks know the pickups, they know the prep, and they can be prepared for when we do go live.
So you make the menus in Baton Rouge and then you bring them over to Lafayette.
Yes.
How do you maintain that consistency across 2 locations?
Trust, you know, I do these recipes for it, and typically recipes are going to need to be tweaked. So that's why we do these, we run them as specials, see what needs to be fixed. Something might work here that doesn't work there. So then we address that. But I trust the 2 chefs that I have over there, Chef Estevan and Chef Aaron. They do a really good job. Estevan's, I want to say he's been with Ruffino's for like 11 years, 12 years. So he knows this company inside and out. Chris, the general manager there too, you know, he does a great job with making sure that the standards are upheld in the kitchen. So, you know, it's trusting these guys and having the paperwork and all of what I need done, recipes, everything tested, so that way they have the tools they need to make it happen. You know, it's the planning beforehand, which when we rolled out our spring menu, there was so much paperwork, so much planning, and I'd never done that before because I'd never had to do it for multiple locations, you know, and Megan helped me out a lot with that. It was very overwhelming to look at it and sit down and say, okay, I need to do all of this, have all these standards, you know, the SOPs written, all these recipes written, and some of them probably won't work. So testing all of that, but it was a long process. But once it was over with, it was such a smooth transition from paper to the plate. You know, it was incredibly smooth, and that's something that she's great at, is, you know, helping me plan this and set timelines and set you know, goals for when things need to be done. And that's why she's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Typically, how long do you have to run a dish as a special before you know it's going to make the menu?
Well, we run our specials for a week, and if it's something that we really enjoy and our guests enjoy it, we'll do it again. Like there's certain things that we do run over and over and over as specials, but not that I don't want to put them on the menu. I just don't think they'd be a good fit on the menu. So we have a handful of things we keep in our back pockets that we know people are going to buy, that we run as specials, but it just doesn't fit and align with the menu. So I would say if I run something 2 to 3 times and it sells, I'd say that sweet spot would be 40 to 50 in a week, then we know we got something good and that we can move forward with that on the menu.
What's not on the menu right now that you want to put back on the menu for the next rotation of specials?
I don't know. That's a tough question. So there's a pork chop dish that I ran probably 2 months ago No, less than that, about a month and a half ago. And it's just a sous vide bone-in pork chop that we grill on the plancha. It had a wild mushroom risotto and Italian salsa verde. Now this sauce it's incredible. So it's very simple. It's just a parsley-based sauce. It's a salsa verde, but it's got capers in it. It's got anchovies in it. It's got Italian breadcrumbs in it. It's got garlic, shallots, and a bunch of herbs. A little bit of vinegar and oil. So it looks like a pesto, but it's savory. It's got, freshness from the parsley, funkiness from the anchovies. It's so good. And we stuffed that pork chop with like a porchetta stuffing. So instead of doing a rolled pork belly, we took the same filling that we would put in there and shoved it in a pork chop.
Wow.
So that dish comes to mind whenever you ask that question about what specials, that thing, it's incredible.
Just listening to you describe it, I can see why it came to mind first. Wow.
And I'd like to put that on the menu at some point.
I can't wait. Wow. You're making me so hungry right now. Golly.
Well, I guess I can ask you about your upbringing in this industry.
Ooh.
I know you had talked about, the bars and where you are now, but before that, how did you decide this is what you wanted to do and this is what business you wanted to be involved in?
I've always loved food. I've been a fat kid most of my life and wouldn't have it any other way, right? My parents are Vietnamese, so we grew up mainly eating Vietnamese food. But then my mom would get like Betty Crocker cookbooks, and then she would make food, like the pot roast and, like all the normal things like meatloaf and stuff that you would normally have. Normal comfort food, right? And this is how it really happened. I would always want to eat more, and my parents would cook meals for me, but then I would always want to eat more. And then it got to the point where I was like, well, you have to cook your own food now, like if you want to eat in the middle of the day or something. Right. So then my grandmother taught me how to cook an egg. And that was the first thing I ever cooked, like, I don't know why she had this like little bowl of oil on top of the stove, but that's how we, we just poured in, it just stayed there. But she taught me how to cook my first egg. And from there, I just fell in love with cooking in general, because I could experiment. I could do weird things because no one told me how to do anything. I would just put things together and be like, either this is good or it's not good, And then I didn't have my first real restaurant job until I was about 17. I worked at Brewbacher's. I started off as a dishwasher. And then I started moving up through, all the different positions from fry cook to working grill, expo and all that. So, but I remember wanting to be the best at anything that I did. So like I wanted to be the fastest dishwasher. I wanted to have everything clean and be done before everybody else. I would talk smack to people about how fast I was, right? It was that kind of, I guess, mentality. And I never thought I would do anything more than wash dishes over there, a friend of mine was a dishwasher there, and he was like, dude, come get a job. And I was like, dude, I'm 17, like no big deal. So I started doing it, and I was like, I love the I guess the chaos that you were talking about. It was always different. People were just screaming, and not in like a crazy bad way where it made you feel bad, but like the energy in a kitchen it's infectious, It ramps you up. There's a reason why when you get off from a night shift, you can't go to sleep right away. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I love that feeling. And then the more I started to cook, the more I started to get better at it, the more I started to try different things. And I probably wasn't supposed to try different things, all right? But I did. And I would always try to come up with new things. They never would make the menu, but I would eat it, my coworkers would eat it. And just from there, I was just having a lot of fun because I'm the kind of guy where if I'm not having fun, I'm not going to do it. And I've always kind of been this way. It doesn't matter how good the money is. Like after I graduated college, I got a job working for a call center for Home Depot. And then I quickly moved up through the positions there because I just cared. You know what I mean? Like I always wanted to be the best. I always want to beat my numbers from the day before. And then when you start to do things like that, you get noticed. And I think that's what you were talking about, like how you started off. Is you were just so good at the small things that you started getting noticed and then getting promoted. And I think a lot of people don't realize that now because they just expect to be promoted. They expect to get this high position, but you got to show me that you're freaking awesome right here. Like if you want to be a bartender, you got to start as a host. You have to start as a server or then move up to a server and then you can bartend, right? And like they want to skip from no experience to the best position.
Right.
And they don't realize that you have to earn it. And earning it isn't just like seniority, right? Like I don't promote people based on how long they've been with me. I promote people on how good you are and how much you care, right?
You have to master one thing before you can move on to the next.
Exactly.
Like stations, I want to learn this station, I want to learn that station. Well, you need to master this one first, because if you don't, you go to this one, you're not going to have an idea of how to master this one. You're going to know how to work every station, barely.
Yes.
Just to get by. And it's hard to explain that to somebody, because in their mind, they're like, oh, well, I know how to work this station. I have mastered it, but you haven't. I wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd be moving up already. And it's a tough thing to deal with. Like you said, people are expecting promotions just because of how long they've been there, or just whatever the reason may be. And if you can come in and work this station day in and day out, and I don't have to tell you anything or worry about anything, that's when you've mastered it.
Yeah. Speaking of Stephen Hightower, you mentioned him earlier. I stole a core value from him. It's humble confidence, and people don't understand how important that is. You have to be so good at what you do, but you can't be a prick about it.
Yeah.
Like you have to be willing to help other people. You have to be willing to learn. And so many people have shaky foundations, and then they wonder why they're not successful when they move up for whatever reason. When you're talking about mastering something, there's a level of confidence that comes from mastering something, which then you bring into the next thing, because you're not confident when you move up to something that you don't know how to do yet. But when you're confident in yourself and how you get to where you want to be, the level of, I guess, work ethic or grit or resilience or whatever word you want to use, right? When you know yourself to that degree, you can tackle anything. Which, as you were telling me your story, I started to kind of think about that, is you would always put yourself in, just like for most people, scary and uncomfortable and just not very fun situations, right? But some reason you thrived on that. And I was thinking about why a person would do that. And I was like, because you know yourself, like you know what you're capable of doing, and you know that you won't settle for anything less, and it does show in like the type of person you are, and like the food that you make, and just your outlook on how you treat people. We were talking about that earlier, about the hospitality side of things. Like your food should be good, right?
Yep.
But how you feel when you leave is way more important than anything that I can put on a plate for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about like listening to you. And then once again, going back to that Pro Start, because that's the only time I've really had a chance to be in the kitchen with you, and watching you impart that love of cooking and just the kitchen in general to those kids, and watching how they responded. And honestly, your chefs back there too were awesome. Yep. Their spirits were so high, like they were dancing and like cutting up.
I know.
These kids are just freaking out, and like you've got like your cooks just like jamming, And I was like, this is a fun kitchen. Like if I was in high school and I saw this, I would know for a fact I would do this. I didn't get the chance to do it when I was, in high school or anything.
Right.
So just to see that the opportunity that they had, I was like, this was sweet, dude. It was so awesome to see that.
Yeah, and I think they're going to remember that.
Oh, for sure they're going to remember that.
And that, in a good way. Hopefully it showed them that it can be fun. Work doesn't have to be miserable.
If you're miserable, you're in the wrong work.
Yeah, and we can have fun. We can joke around. We can, do all those things. But there's a time you got to know how to flip that switch, right?
Yep. I think... So I didn't realize how far behind they were on prepping and stuff, but there was that girl that was working expo, and like at the end of the shift, I was talking to her, and she was, I wouldn't say complaining, but talking about how like, I guess the teacher was like not happy with them because they weren't prepped up enough. They didn't have enough stuff, and like just the way that she was talking about her, and then she had to explain like to her peers, I guess, like the other students about it. And then I told her, I was like, you do realize that both of those personalities are extremely important. Right? You have to have someone who's going to uphold the standards, someone that's going to tell you that what you did wasn't good enough, right? But she wasn't just coming down on you. She was telling you how to be better at it. And then you need that other side where you explain to everybody why it's so important. Because in the middle of things, that's what she was saying was, this wasn't the time to say this. And I was like, but when is the time? You know what I mean? Like, she didn't yell at you. She just mentioned it, right? It was a coaching moment.
Right.
It wasn't like she was like berating you during the middle of a service or anything. But she needed to say that out loud, because both of those sides are very important. And just watching her kind of take that in, she was like, yeah, So I was like, it's not one or the other, because it was all one-sided that, didn't care about standards, that kitchen would fall apart. And if it was all people who only cared about standards and not about how people felt, it would also fall apart. You need both of them to make a kitchen work. Yeah,
I agree. And coachable moments too are so important in front of other people, because those, like, say if I'm coaching you, you do something wrong, right? And I'm upset, but we have a coachable moment in front of people. That's going to tell everybody else, okay, this is something that I shouldn't be doing. So you're not only teaching the one person, but everybody else hears that. And it's difficult to have a one-on-one, keep having one-on-ones with different people about the same thing, So I think there's a time and a place for one-on-one coaching, but also there's a time and a place for coaching in front of people, because people have to hear that, and you may be embarrassed or whatever, but I'm not picking on you. We're not trying to belittle you. It's just, everyone's going to learn from this. It's a learning experience for everybody. And so many people don't see that, it's like, I don't appreciate how you talk to me in front of everybody, but this is a coachable moment.
You have to have tough skin, but there's two things that I think about. Well, there's a lot I think about, but we call them feedback events. Within 2 to 3 minutes, I want someone to say something either positive that you want more of, or we criticize what we don't want, what we want less of, right? But the thing is, you can't criticize the person in public. You criticize the behavior in public. That way everyone else can learn, right? This is how we do this. This is why we do this, right? But if it's a personal thing, that we take offline. That's a one-on-one behind closed doors, right?
Yes.
Because we're not attacking people, we're attacking behaviors, right? But some people they can't differentiate between the two.
Right.
And then those are the ones who are like, take a breath, right? Like, come talk to me, like, we got this, right? Because sometimes people care so much, that they take it really personally. But then when you can sit down and you can explain to them why you did what you did, or why you had to say what you said, then they go, okay, I understand, right? And the ones who don't understand, those are the ones that probably shouldn't be in a kitchen, right? There's a certain personality that thrives in a kitchen. There's certain personalities that don't. There's nothing wrong with that. You just got to find a place that you're more comfortable being, right? It might be in the front of the house, right? Because kitchens, they're rough, right? You were talking about, like, back in the day getting things thrown at you, and we were talking about how I'm glad that doesn't happen anymore. But those are the kitchens that I got my start in, what, 20 something years ago, 25-ish. Wow. Okay, it's a long time ago, right? But back then it was okay for someone to scream at you, and you had to have thick skin.
Yes.
But
that was the culture.
Yes, and I'm glad it's not there now. But I can tell you, I learned a lot, because the same people that would yell at me, we'd go grab a beer after work.
Yeah.
So, like, you knew they cared about you, but how they let it out in the moment today is probably not acceptable.
Correct.
But back then, no one thought twice about it. Because if they were assholes, that would be a different thing. But I think for the most part, those people genuinely cared about what they did, and, like, they didn't want to put their name on something subpar.
Right.
And that's a tough line to toe now, because sometimes I feel like you have to be a little bit too soft, and when you're too soft, people don't take you seriously.
The message isn't clear.
But also the other side is, it's also difficult, because some people have ulterior motives. Right. So.
And honestly, there's certain people that respond better to being yelled at.
Yes.
It's crazy, but that's what works for them.
It's funny you say that. I'm not a yeller. I don't scream at people. I don't raise my voice in anger, because the way that I look at it, when I do, or if I do, I've already lost.
Yeah.
And I'm in the position to where if that ever happens, that means I didn't do my job and either coach you enough or get you out, right? So ultimately, it's going to be my fault if I lose my cool, which is why I don't lose my cool,
right.
But there's so many times that people you've coached for months on end, right? And then you tell them, this is going to happen if you keep doing this, right? I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And then when you finally do it, they go, I didn't know you were serious. And it blows my mind.
Yeah.
It 100% does. I'm like, what do you mean? Like I have
We've
like
had-
PIPs
We've
like,
had this conversation
with your signature on it. Like
multiple times.
like our meeting notes are recorded. Like it's in our drive. Like it's like you have access to this too. Like what are you talking about, right? But because I didn't yell at you,
Right.
they take it as if I wasn't serious. And I don't know how to do that like for those people, right? Like I don't want to be out of character, right? But I also want to be able to get through to people.
Right.
So thinking about like how do I toe that line between, let's call it soft and hard, right? Like how do I find that balance? I haven't really figured it out yet. My thing now is I focus on, how do your actions and behaviors show the person right next to you that you care about them, right? I say that a lot. I mean, that's kind of how I figured out whether or not you belong on my team or not, right? Because if you show up late, you didn't show that person that you cared. If you left your station a mess, you didn't show that person that came after you that you cared. So if you didn't have that care, then you don't belong with the team. But then care alone isn't enough. You have to be really good at what you do because that's what we're in the business of. We're in the business of impressing people.
Yep.
Like we want to be proud of what we do. I usually say this to my team a lot is my job is to make sure you're proud to work here. If you're not proud to work here, I'm not doing my job. That's the hardest thing, I guess, with trying to coach people and make them better now is like you want them to grow. Like you want them to be better. You want them to have the opportunities that you had. Like I've had plenty of people in my life that have pushed me to be better. I'm sure you have too. Like 100% I know you have, right? I'm sure Megan does it for you too. Like, like all the people that we surround ourselves with, I think their job is to push us and make us better. And if they don't, do they really care about you?
Right.
That's what I think all the time. It's like, if they don't push me, do they really care about me? Finding the right people to join your team is tough. How do you find the right people, I guess? I'm not talking about like Indeed or like
I just
ads,
think
but like
it's a trial and error. It's you just have to take a chance and hire these people and show them this is our standard, this is what we do here, and sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes it does, but I think it's important to give everybody a chance. If you have the qualifications that fit working at Ruffino's, then you're going to get a chance, but I get so many applications where it's like, I worked in a UPS warehouse.
I was about to say forklift operator. I get so many of
I can't do
those.
anything with that. It's tough, but if you don't have experience, Ruffino's is not the place to start.
Yeah.
There are restaurants that are entry-level restaurant jobs, and that's not a bad thing. It's just what we do and what's required, you have to have some type of background in not necessarily fine dining, but fast-paced kitchens, and that's a struggle too, is finding people, because all the really good ones have been at the places that they're at for years and years, and they're taken care of, right? So you're always looking for
new talent.
Yep.
Yeah. Who can you develop into?
I think it's better to have, younger, eager cooks that want to learn, instead of people that think they know it all, or they've been doing this for 20 years and, I know how to do everything. Well, I don't know how to do everything. So
I know I don't.
I don't know how you know how to do everything. And this is how we do it here. This is how we make risotto. This is our standard. This is our recipe. There's a million ways to do things, right? But it's a lot easier to find someone that's younger and eager to learn, to teach, than to have someone is set in their ways, stuck in their ways and wants to do this way. And that's great. But that person needs to go and find a management job somewhere, So finding people's difficult. I think it's more difficult than it's ever been. And a lot of applications that we get, that you see, is just,
what makes you think you want to do this?
Or is it
right? Like you've never had any
is
experience
it just
doing
a fake,
this.
Is it just a fake application? Or you just put an application in just to put an application in. So it's tough to decipher. Even sitting down with people and interviewing them, they could interview great.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
They show up and they don't know how to cut an onion. So I think it's just trial and error, finding people, and you'll stumble across one or two every 15 to 20 people. It's like
It's almost a numbers
they're all
game,
diamonds in the rough, you know. Yeah, it really is a numbers game, you know. And what's tough about it is it's hard to find time to interview that many people and take a chance on that many people and train that many people. It's time consuming, and it's costly too, you know. So it's how do you find the balance between, oh, I'm going to take a chance on this person as opposed to this person, you know. The same resume, they both worked at the same places, but one interviewed better than the other one. And the one that interviewed better is the one that you're going to hire, right? But the other one is probably better at the job than this one is. So you know, it's a difficult task.
I say that in my interviews a lot. I do interviews for management, and I'll just tell them straight up. I was like, if what you're telling me now doesn't match up with what you do on day one, we're just not a good fit together, because everyone interviews so well. Like, they're always going to put their best foot forward. Right. They're always going to say what you want to hear, you know? So you're always trying to ask these like situational questions, you know, just to kind of figure out their character first. Because I feel like the character needs to come before the performance, but both are extremely important. So if you have the character, chances are I can probably coach the performance. But if you have the performance and not the character, I can't do anything with that, right? Like, that's going to be the toughest part. For what we've been trying to do, the level of hospitality that we've been trying to put out, it's harder to go with people who have no experience, because it's so hard. Like, for servers, for instance, right? Like, I'm going to need someone who's served before and understands the fundamentals of service. And then I can teach you how we do it, right? But you got to know how to smile. You have to know how to connect to a guest. You have to know how to fix problems that go above and beyond. Those are things that I can't teach someone who's never been in the business, right? That's something I can teach you if you're a host for a while, but you always get these people to come in and they don't want to start as hosts. They're like, well, I want to be a server now. And you're like, but you don't know anything yet. You know, like, what makes you think you can be a server? Because you've seen other people do it and it looks so easy. I tell people now that, especially with YouTube, that I can watch enough YouTube videos and I can be a car mechanic. But if you put a tool in my hand, I can't fix it. You know, I can probably talk my way through it, right? Like, you remove this thing and you do this, but as soon as you put my hands on it, I'm like, I don't know what to do now, right? And that's what I see a lot now, is everyone says they can do stuff, you know, but their words don't match their actions, and and then when that doesn't happen, I feel like it's a big knock to them, and then the attitudes come out after that, you know, because then now they start to realize that maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, and then you're trying to coach them through and you're trying to help them understand. But sometimes people just don't get it, and and I haven't figured that out yet. You know, I don't think anybody has.
No,
right?
And that's, like you said, the attitudes, and that's when people start to get defensive. It becomes, you know, like you said when we talked on the phone the other day about, you know, a specific person. It's just that attitude comes out, and then we all know now that you don't know what you're doing, and that you lied on your interview, and you know, it's all around bad for everybody. And for me, I don't see how somebody can do that. I couldn't do it, because that's my name. You know, this is my word. I'm telling you I can do something, and then I show up and I don't do it. That looks horrible on me. So I don't see how
you only have one
anybody
reputation
can do that. You know, it's very weird to me. But and Baton Rouge is not that big of a place.
It's not.
Our industry is very tight knit and small, so there's only a few chances you get, you know, and people know each other.
If you've been in this industry, for at least 3 years, I can probably make 1 or 2 phone calls, or worse yet, 1 text, right, to a group and figure out everything that I need to know about you. And most people don't understand that. You know, like, they'll burn bridges, and you know, like, I've said this before to people. I was like, before you burn this bridge, right? Like, let's figure out a different path for you, right? Because I want to be able to give you a good referral. You know, understand we're going through something right now. We're probably not a good fit together. But if you burn this bridge, when someone asks me about you, I have to be honest with them, right? Like, I would want someone to be honest with me. And I'm going to be honest if anyone asks me about anybody that's worked for me in the past. So I try to protect their reputation without them knowing it, you know? So, and a lot of times they'll understand. Like, my whole new way of kind of like sorting people out is I ask you, do you want to be here? And then you have to prove to me you want to be here. Because if you want to be here, you can make mistakes. I'm cool with that, right? But you have to learn from them. But if you don't want to be here, there's no amount of coaching or development that I can give you that's going to make you happy. Right. Between probably everybody that we know, it's so easy to find a different place for them to work if they still want to be in this industry. But if they don't want to be in this industry, yeah, they have to kind of have that self-awareness to go, you know what, maybe restaurants aren't for me.
Right.
You know, so many times I've heard servers say this and they don't stay with me very long, but God, I hate people. And you're like, wrong business.
Your job is people.
Yeah. I was like, this is probably not the right place
Right.
for you. You know, you might want to be like a secretary or CPA or something, somewhere super boring, you know, like
Right.
somewhere where you don't see a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, because everyone's different. Everyone comes in at different stages of their life. You know, I usually tell my servers that if someone comes in and they look upset for any reason, I don't care if it's our fault or not. I want to know about it so we can talk to them, because people go to eat for that connection. If they don't want to connect to somebody, they would just like DoorDash that thing, right? Like they go through a drive-through and pick it up or something. But the fact that someone came in and sat down tells me that they're looking for something more than just a meal. Our job is to provide that. Our job is to figure out what that is, and then hopefully we can provide that to them. And once again, I love a good challenge. So if you come in and you look upset, I'm gonna figure it out, right? I don't know what it is, but it might be like 45 minutes of talking to you at your table or something, but I'm gonna figure it out. And by the time you leave, you're gonna know how much we care about you, right? And that to me is why I am in this business. Yeah. It's the people. The more people I can make happy, the more fulfilled I am. You know, the more, I guess, joy I have in my life. You know, like it's like I said, you're either built for this or you're not.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're built for this, you don't want to do anything else.
You're right. And I've done something else here and there, and it's like, yep, I always find myself back here. You know, and kind of what you said a little bit about, do you want to be here? To our team members, you know, and the other question of that is, if someone is day in and day out just miserable at work, no one's forcing you to be here. Your choice. It's your choice to work here.
Yes.
I know you. Yes, you have to have a job. Sure, you have to make money, but no one's forcing you to have this job. So if you don't like it, make a decision. You know, it's you're making a decision to be miserable, and you know, I just don't understand that.
I heard this somewhere. It's most people lack the courage to quit. So their performance will slip,
Right.
You know, and like you'll know when someone's checked out when they check out, but their words are different. You know, like, oh no, I'm still in it. You're like, well, your performance is dipped pretty good.
Correct.
Like you stop showing up to work on time. You don't even care about being in uniform. You know, like you're telling me everything I need to know, but then they don't want to make that choice, and then they act as if you're forcing them to be here, and like you're holding them against their will, and you're like, you do know you can leave right now. Like we're cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're gonna be okay. Like the doors will still open tomorrow.
Yeah.
You'll still wake up. Like everything will be fine. But if you're not happy here, like my job is to make sure I put you somewhere where that you are happy, whether it be a different position or
help you find a job at another restaurant or something else. I mean, I never want it to get to that point of resenting people.
No.
You know, that's the worst, is whenever it gets to a point of resentment. Then again, I didn't do my job, you know, and that's just a tough thing to deal with. I don't want to hate people. I don't want to resent people. Certain things, and it's like in a kitchen, you know, tempers are high. There's a lot of pressure and things happen, right? So before they get to that point, we need to figure something out to fix it or find you a different place. And I'm glad to help people find another job. You know, if this doesn't fit what you want to do anymore, great. Let's find something that does. And like you said, you're not going to burn a bridge based off of, you know, you just don't like being here anymore.
Like you're not going to hurt my feelings.
Correct.
You know, like I want you to be happy.
Yeah.
And if it's somewhere else and you're a good person, someone else can benefit from what you have to offer.
Yeah.
You know, but they don't look at it that way sometimes. And I don't know why, but I say this a lot, but they were really good until they weren't, right? I don't know what happens. I'm trying to be better at figuring out the beginning of that cycle.
Right.
Right. Like when they're really good, and then when they start to slip a little bit, that's when we need to have that conversation.
Right.
Right. Because normally they'll say everything's fine, everything's good, and then all of a sudden you get to this point where the resentment starts to set in. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
right? It's we're probably gonna struggle with that problem forever. You know, if I ever figure it out, I'll let you know for sure.
Yeah.
I don't
Same
think
here.
it's gonna happen anytime soon, right? But I think the longer we think about it, the better we'll get at
Understanding
helping
it.
people. Yeah. Patrick, thank you so much for coming in today, man. I learned so much from you.
Thanks for having me. I had a blast, and we can definitely do this again.
Oh, we will do this again. I'm gonna see you at Ruffino's very soon.
Perfect.
I'm getting some of that gnocchi.
Come by. We got more than that too.
Oh, I can't wait. I know for sure I'm getting some of that fig.
Fig and hoisin glazed pork belly.
That for sure. That made my belly grumble.
Awesome. Well, let me know.
Awesome.
Shoot me a text, and we'll have a table ready for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right.
Is that
Is that good?
dude? That was awesome, dude.